Mark Noble's recent interview in The Standard highlighted a massive shift in our transfer window ambitions and how the future of the academy could reap future benefit and reward for West Ham. In the interview that Mark Noble held with The Standard, he said that he believes that the academy does have a big role to play in the future of West Ham United. Noble mentioned that he slips on his boots on the training ground with the academy players, and I think that's fantastic. That a former academy player like Noble being around the young players can be a real inspiration for them. They can. It's someone that they can look up to, and it's someone that they will remind them that getting through the academy is worthwhile. If you're good enough, you will progress into the first team. Many people have been recently asking if it's even worth having an academy at West Ham United at all. Of course, many people look at it. We live in our West Ham bubble, and we see all these young players going to other teams or being sold off for next to nothing, and saying, "Well, what's the point of having them if we're not going to nurture them and progress them into the first team?" But you'll be surprised to hear that, or may not be surprised to hear, that 97% of Premier League academy players do not make it to Premier League football. And it'd be interesting to see how many of the players that have moved on recently actually do make regular first team football in the Premier League. So to be fair, we're not really different at West Ham United than most other teams in the league. With the big money involved in football nowadays, many Premier League managers and many Premier League club owners will go for the quick transfer market fix and will consider it to be a better investment to buy players rather than giving academy players the time to develop, flourish, and make it into first team football. There are, of course, exceptions to the rule. There always have been. Bobby Moore in the 60s made it through the academy. And more recently, we had Joe Cole, Frank Lampard, Rio Ferdinand, Michael Carrick all making it through and forging fantastic careers in top flight football for all of them. But those were different times, and the big money, and those were different times. And although there was money around the time of Rio Ferdinand, etc., it's not quite the sort of level of money that is around now. And as the money keeps flowing into Premier League football, the demands on success is ever increasing. Mark Noble said, "It's so important to bring the young players through because any young English player who plays in the Premier League will all of a sudden have a price tag of £30 million, and that's fantastic. And it's nice to know at some point we might not have to spend loads of money if we can bring players through." So Noble clearly sees the advantage of a well set up youth academy like the one we have at West Ham. In today's game, you can still find a smattering of players who have made it through their respective academies. James Ward-Prowse at Southampton, Mason Mount at Chelsea, and of course, our very own Declan Rice at West Ham United. Now, look, Noble went on to make comments about Declan Rice and about West Ham United, and I want to just touch on those for a moment. He went on to say about Declan Rice, it's just the world we live in, where West Ham and these players want to go out and play Champions League football, and do you blame them? Dec is no different. Dec will always be held at West Ham as a fantastic player and a top person. But I don't think anyone begrudges him wanting to go and win things. We just hope he'll keep performing like he has been over the last month or so. Wherever Declan ends up, I'll have much someone pays for him, whether it's here or anywhere else. He's worth every penny. Don't dispute that at all. Noble went on to say, he said openly he loves playing at West Ham, and but he's got ambitions as a player to go and play in the Champions League and win trophies. I don't think anyone at West Ham can actually have an agenda over that. And then he went on to say, do you blame him for having really big ambitions? Of course you don't. If he didn't, he probably wouldn't be as good as he is. Look, we know that Declan Rice is a top player. We know without a doubt he's probably one of the best academy products since maybe the likes of Ferdinand, Cole, and so on. That's undisputed. We also pretty much resigned to the fact that he will leave West Ham United probably in the summer and quite likely to be sold for a massive fee. And he probably will be sold. Well, not probably. He will be sold to a team that will be looking at Champions League football and trying to win that trophy and other trophies. There's no argument there, none at all. But for me, the comments of where we are as a club, I think, weren't, maybe just not very well thought through, and what impact that might have on any future transfer targets that we might be looking to get to bring in. I'll just remind you, just in a summary, he said, where West Ham and these players want to go out and play Champions League football, do you blame him for having really big ambitions? Now, look, we know our place in the footballing world. We know that we can't compete in Champions League. It's a dream for us. One day, maybe, we might get close to qualifying for the Champions League, as we did in the 2021 season when we finished a couple of points just off a Champions League position. Or when we had the 21-22 season, when we could have won and should have won the Europa League, and that would have seen us playing in the Champions League as well. So I'm in no way deluded that we're a team that should or could be qualifying for Champions League football on a regular basis. So I understand why Declan Rice will want to go to a club that gives him that. But Noble more or less openly admitted that if players want to play in the Champions League, or if a player wants ambition or has big ambitions and wants to go on and win trophies, then they might as well not bother to sign for West Ham United. If we cast our minds back to around the January 2022 transfer window, we were sitting fourth in the league at the time, and we were linked to a number of players. And one of them was Dennis Zakaria from Borussia Mönchengladbach at the time. He was playing for Gladbach at that time, subsequently moved to Juventus in that January 22 transfer window, and has recently gone on loan to Chelsea in the recent window that's just closed. The way that the Zakaria story was reported back then was that David Moyes was shopping in the top end of the transfer market. To add to that, Moyes said that he would not get players in for the sake of it, just because fans wanted him to. He also went on to say that he will only get players in who he thought could improve the squad, and that he had a policy where he was looking at the top end of the market for players. He wanted the big players, the big hitters, and that continued in the January 2022 window, and also in the summer 2022 window. We were continuously linked with a whole host of players that other top clubs were also chasing. As we know, we apparently put bids in for the likes of Darwin Núñez and also Luis Diaz, who both ended up at Liverpool, as well as putting in a bid for Calvin Phillips, who went to Manchester City, not to mention Filip Kostic, who's now at Juventus, and also Piotr Zielinski, who remained at Napoli, but they are now top of Serie A and looking likely to qualify for Champions League football next season. So you can see there was a big shift in the targets we were chasing. We were no longer going for the championship footballers, but certainly players that we thought, or David Moyes thought, would take us to Champions League football. Despite the disappointment of not managing to sign some of Moyes' top targets in the summer, we still managed to bring in some very good talent. Players such as Agerd, Paqueta, and Scamacca all came through in the summer. And let's be honest, we were all extremely excited, and we were all saying that these were next level footballers. But would any of them had come to West Ham United if they heard the messages that Noble recently gave in his interview in the Standard, that we're a team that can never really compete for Champions League football, we're a team that can never win trophies? And what about the future signings? What part of the transfer market are we now shopping in when the next transfer window opens? Is it still the top end of the market? Or as demonstrated in January 2023, we're now back to reality at West Ham, where we've signed a 30-year-old striker who has good Premier League experience. I've got nothing. I don't have anything wrong with signing Danny Ings. We're currently suffering from not being able to score enough goals, and I think he's an astute signing. But you can see the shift again. You know, we were once a team who were signing championship footballers, looking for bargain basement footballers, etc. And then all of a sudden we had a good spell and we were looking at David Moyes was looking at signing top end of the market players, and now we're back to the reality of signing players who we kind of need. Probably will dip into the Championship again next in the summertime. Maybe other players like Danny Ings coming in, etc. Clearly, our plans to continue shopping in the top end of the transfer market probably died with the current season that we're having, and also with the comments that Mark Noble recently made. What a difference a year makes, eh? Let's see how we get on.